Hello, my name is Marla, and this is my Big Ideas video presentation, Theory Meets Reality, Personal Reflections on Introduction to Psychology. I just selected the theories amygdala and fear and ethics of care. I chose them specifically because I felt stronger ties towards these theories than the rest, and I would like to talk about my stories related to them. My first theory is based on the emotion and motivation, Joseph Ledoux, amygdala and fear. Joseph Ledoux is a pioneer in the study of the brain mechanisms of emotion and memory. His extensive research challenged the idea that the amygdala is the sole fear center of the brain. He argued that fear itself is involved in threat detection and response, and that fear arises from different circuits of the brain, particularly those associated with our working memory and episodic memory. The amygdala is critical for detecting potential dangers and initiating a defense response, i.e., fight or flight, which is often gained through its role of fear conditioning and learning, such as touching a hot stove or being cautious with dogs because you had a bad experience with one previously. But those works suggest that we move on from this simplistic idea of the amygdala equals fear, and that fear and anxiety manifest differently than what we thought. In applying this theory to my life, a couple years ago, me and my family went to the Universal Studios. One of the last attractions that we went to was called The Walking Dead. And in my assumption, I knew that The Walking Dead was about zombies, and I had no idea that what we were going to be walking into was not a ride, but a walkthrough of the set design. Now, I had assumed that it was sit down, but went to my surprise that it was a walkthrough with actors who were in our faces, yelling and screaming at us like they were real life zombies. Now, that terrified me, and I just put my jacket over my head. I held on tight to my mom's belt loop with my finger, and I stumbled the entire way through screaming. Eventually, I peeked out of my jacket and I saw an emergency exit, and I bolted through. It turned out that we weren't supposed to go that way, and the actors literally had to stop acting and tell us to come back in so we can go through the proper channels. I believe as though that this theory is more broad than the typical notion that fear just comes from our amygdala. I've never been a fan of zombies, and that was conditioned to me through both media and stories that I've heard from my friends and etc. So to actually have an experience like that goes to prove that even though I had an idea of what I'm afraid of and what's in my conscious mind, that my subconscious also had an idea of this fear and reacted appropriately towards it. My second theory is off of developmental psychology of ethics of care by Carol Gilligan. Carol Gilligan is an American feminist, ethicist, and psychologist best known for her work on ethics within communities and relationships. Her approach upon the ethics of care emphasizes the relationships, empathy, responsible, and moral decision-making. Gilligan's work challenged a traditional assumption that women are less morally developed than a man, and arguing that their focus and care and relationship is quite different but equally valid. Unlike justice-based ethics, which emphasize universal rules and being impartial, the ethics of care prioritizes relationships and the well-being of individuals and in those relationships. One example of this theory is parenting. Parents meet the both emotional and physical needs of their child, which is equated to the ethics of care. Another example is nursing. Nurses who are prioritizing building relationships with patients understand their needs and provide compassionate care and exemplify the ethics of care. Another example that I can mention is teachers and education. Teachers who create a supportive and caring classroom environment where students feel safe to learn and grow embody the principle of ethics and care. The ethics of care in my story applies to when I was 5 years old and I cut my ear open. I was at daycare when this happened, and I was running around the room when I wasn't supposed to, and I slipped and fell, and I split my ear open on the side of a table. 5-year-old me had quite literally never experienced this kind of pain before, but I remember it so clearly. My parents, upon being called, picked me up and rushed me to the ER. It was there that I saw treatment and eventually had to be stitched up. This is where things turned a little bit hairy. I saw a needle, and that's when the tables had turned. I started screaming and crying, and frankly, I didn't want to be held down so I could have my ears stitched up, which is a valid response for any minor who's getting stitches. Eventually, they managed to calm me down and had my mom home so I didn't move so they could do it properly. And before I left, I was given a gift. See, around the time of me getting injured, it was November, a couple of days from Thanksgiving, and one of the nurses had gotten a glove, scribbled on it to make it look like a turkey, and blew it up. This turkey balloon has forever been ingrained in my memory, and it's quite literally the reason why I want to pursue nursing. This kindness is what I want to exhibit for others. That's what I want my patients to feel on the possibly worst day of their life. I want them to know that I'm here. And I believe that's through the way ethics of care is exemplified. In my reflection, learning these theories has given me a better understanding of how others view each other, how I view myself, and how others view me. I want to be able to be a good example, a good leader, and I feel as though that these theories will turn into tools necessary for me to not only be a good nurse, but a good person. In my conclusion, my key takeaways are that fear can be overcome and that it's okay to be uncomfortable with things in your life, and taking care of someone has a much deeper meaning and effect on their life than you think within the time of you guys spending with each other, whether it's from nurse to patient or teacher to student or to child to parent. So I leave you with this: encourage each other by being kind to each other and yourself. Otherwise, you won't get anywhere with life. Thank you for watching my video.